Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. This hour of the Jeremiah Show is brought to you by Kuzin Matcha. I got my Kuzin Matcha machine in the mail last night. It's amazing. It won Time Magazine's Design Award of the Year. It's just beautiful. Kuzin Matcha. There's no better time, though, than now, really, to bring the ritual of freshly ground matcha into your home and share it with someone you love. You can shop early. They have home matcha kits. Basically, imagine an espresso with a push button, right? That's what this Kuzin matcha machine is. It's just amazing. It's small. It fits on your counter, and it grinds the Japanese matcha leaves to every order. So it's not a powder. It's real Japanese matcha leaves from farms, Kuzin matcha farms in Japan. So you can shop early and give meaning to this holiday season. Stay tuned to the end of the show for Kuzin Matcha's most generous offer of the year. I'm going to give you out a code. You can get your own or gift it to someone. They will love it, I promise you. I got mine last night. Discover the joy of calm energy and mindful living at kuzinmatcha.com, where every cup is freshly ground to perfection. All right, so welcome back to the Jeremiah Show and the Hollywood Film Composer Series. We've just stepped out of Casa Verdei, that grand house where music and humanity live under the same roof. And now we step into the mind of a composer who understands Verdi's spirit completely. My guest today is Emmy Award-winning composer Nicholas Pike, whose music has shaped some of Hollywood's most unforgettable stories. From the sweeping adventures of Captain Ron, Return to Me, and Virginia's Run, to the darker corners of Fear.com and Stephen King's The Shining miniseries, Nicholas has painted the soundtracks that shape how we feel about film. He's also created music for some of pop culture's most iconic music artists, Michael Jackson's Ghosts and You Rock My World, Will Smith's Wild Wild West, who can forget that one, or this one, MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit. I think that was on repeat through my entire junior high school years. Recently, Nicholas Pike has scored Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories and Bonnie Hunt's Amber Brown for Apple TV Plus, as well as acclaimed documentaries such as 100 Years, the story of Native American activist Eloise Cowell and Fiddlin', which explores the roots of bluegrass music. He's also the 2013 Emmy Award winner for Outstanding Music and Sound for the HBO documentary Into Here Square, 18 Days of Egyptian Revolution, directed by John Alpert and Matthew O'Neill. Nicholas's latest work, that we mentioned in the opening of the show, Viva Verdi, sparks up a musical conversation across centuries. It's a love letter from one composer to another, connecting Verdi's Italy to Pike's modern orchestral world. And it features his piece, Sweet Dreams of Joy, performed by Grammy Award-winning soprano Ana Maria Martinez. The soundtrack celebrates everything Verdi built his life around: compassion, melody, and the belief that art outlives us all. Nicholas Pike is a sonic architect, designing soundscapes that reach beyond the ear, touching our hearts and our imagination. Welcome to the show, Nicholas Pike. Good to see you again. You're back.
Thanks, Jeremiah. It's great to be with you again.
It is. It's really good to see you. We were talking off air about how busy you've been and how this film really has consumed your life in so many different ways. And I'm just so happy to hear that it's doing so well. And I'm very excited for the soundtrack that I have to be available to your fans and the listeners. We're playing most of the songs, I think, on the soundtrack. Correct me if I'm wrong. Throughout the show today, Nicholas generously sent me the tracks, and we're listening to that today. So you're getting a sneak peek before the November 15th release, which is about a week away. So I wanted to start with Verdi. It took him 7 years, or nearly 7 years, to bring Casa Verdi to life. It's a project he financed entirely himself, spending the modern equivalent of nearly 20 million euros to build a home where aging musicians could live with dignity. So, Nicholas, my question for you is, when you think about that level of personal commitment, and a composer such as yourself pouring his fortune and his final years on earth into a sanctuary for artists, what do you feel and what do you hear from that gesture?
I mean, I think you touched on it before a little bit, Jeremiah. At some point it's about legacy, isn't it? You start thinking about, well, will anything that I've done survive past my generation, kind of thing? And I think part of it for him was like, well, this is something I could do that will be there for a long time. It'll serve a lot of musicians, and most of them have probably played his music, and will help to keep that alive. But I think at the heart of it, he was just like this amazing humanitarian who just had the strongest feeling for all the people that had brought his work to life, and made him a very rich man, in the process. And so that act of giving back to those people who maybe I mean, I think in those days they didn't really have retirement funds and all that kind of stuff. So once you stop working, if you didn't have a family to live with to basically take care of you or something like that, you were kind of out on the street, basically. So just an amazing gesture for him to have done.
Mm-hmm.
And the building, I mean, the building it's so spectacular. Every detail of it is done to the highest quality, from the architecture to the stonework, to the woodwork, to the stained glass window work, to the everything there is just top drawer.
Do you think his generosity has shaped the way we understand the composer's role today, that of not just being a creator, but as a caretaker of community?
I don't know about that. I mean, certainly I think some people have taken that on, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're in a little bit of a world right now where there's not enough of that going on. There's not enough of well, certainly, there's not enough humanitarian support going on, I don't think, and I think that, I don't know if I'm very drifting off the question here, but I feel like there are many wealthy people, very, very wealthy people who have benefited from the work of a lot of people to get them where they are, and amass a fortune for them. And, maybe those people, I mean, some of them do step up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are a lot who haven't yet, and I think it's an important part of our world right now to see that kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I think of Santa Barbara. I broadcast out of Santa Barbara here, and I can think, someone comes to mind, a composer who runs the Santa Barbara Folk Orchestra, and he really brings community together through their performances. But there's also the Music Academy of the West in Montecito, and a few other places that really put out and showcase and feature composers that I feel like they bring the community together. So it feels like the score feels like Viva Verdi. It feels like this conversation that you're having, or that you've had over all this time with Verdi. And how did what's the history of the project? How did it come to you? And what drew you to the subject and the overall spirit of the film?
The film has been in the making for 10 plus years. As is often the case with these documentaries, it just takes a long time. It takes a long time to find the story, to put the stories together, to get the footage, to make it into something cohesive and entertaining. Um, I was having lunch with a friend, Alan Rich, songwriter, and we were at some event, and he said to me, "Oh, there's somebody here you should meet." And I was like, "Well, who's that?" And he said, "Christine Lamont. She's the producer of a film. About Verdi." And I was like, "Wow, that sounds interesting." So this is probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, and so we go over, meet Christine. And we're talking, she's telling me all about it. I'm thinking, wow, this sounds really cool. So she said, "Can I send you a 12-minute teaser?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course." So I go home, I download this teaser, and I watch it, and it's just the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen. The energy, the life, the inspiration. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was just so moving. That I literally went over to the piano and wrote this piece of music.
What was your first piece? What was that piece that you...
Sweet Dreams of Joy. Sweet Dreams of Joy, which to me summed up what I was watching. Sweet Dreams of Joy. When you get to a certain age and you have this much energy and joy of life and all the things you kind of hope for, when you sort of get into your later years, it was all there, and I was like, wow, this place is extraordinary, So I wrote the music, and actually initially I called it Continuum because part of this whole Casa Verdi thing is that they bring in, a big part of it is they bring in young up and coming artists who want to study with the masters, who are living there, right? And so it's this amazing interaction between the up and coming generation and these old masters who are there, who've done it all, seen it all. And one of the young guys says, you come to Casa Verdi because you get information, you get knowledge, you get secrets that you can't find anywhere else.
Wisdom.
And so the wisdom, yes, yeah, and then the experience of having been an artist and making a living as an artist. I mean, there's so many, corners to it, dark corners, light corners, so they have this program where an artist will come in for a couple of weeks at a time. They stay there, they live in the building, and every day they basically hang out with whoever it is that they want to be mentored by, and I think that creates this, it's something we in this, especially in this country, we don't do enough of, and that is look to the older generation for guidance, information, experience, all these things that are priceless that you can only get over time, right? And so that interaction is going on daily there, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. So I wrote the piece, wrote the music, and actually initially I called it Continuum because it felt like a continuum to me of young, young and old interacting, and the younger generation picking up the mantle and moving ahead, kind of thing. And then at some time later, I can't remember how long, but I started working on lyrics for it, and I mean they just sort of flowed, because of how I felt about what I'd seen, and
what was that feeling that you... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just to say what you saw and what you felt. What was that feeling, and how did you? Is there a technical way you can describe how you captured that first feeling you had when you saw what he had built with your own eyes, standing in Casa Verdi?
Inspiration. It's I don't know. It's hard to describe, you put it into words exactly what goes on. But it's a feeling of excitement, basically, excitement and energy, and like you want to release it in some way that's positive, that you can come up with something that's really of some value to somebody other than yourself, maybe. And so, my first instinct is to go over to the piano and start noodling around, and just sort of let that emotion flow out through my fingers and take me where it will, which is sort of generally what happens with, when I'm inspired to do something.
What was that emotion that you wanted the listeners to experience? Was it a conscious decision, or was it just coming out the way you felt?
Yeah, I don't think I hadn't put it into words or anything like that. It was just the feeling, the joy, the energy, those things, in some, I don't know how it comes out of the ether and becomes a piece of music. I don't really know how that happens, but you start messing around with an idea and you just start going down the road, and there's really no thinking for me. There's no thinking involved. You're just on that road, and it's taking you somewhere, and you just, yeah. I mean, it's kind of fantastic, really.
Yeah. I bet you get chills when it comes together like that. That inspiration turning into beautiful musical notes. Were there any musical motifs or textures in the soundtrack that you wanted to intentionally echo of Verdi's own themes or his operas?
Yeah, not really, because I mean, for me, they stand by themselves, and I mean, I did in one of the Giambi pieces. Actually, Christine asked me to put in a little motif from was it from La Boheme, or it was from something at the end of a cue, because we were on La Scala, exterior shot of La Scala, sort of a nice little intro into that scene. But overall, no, I just I mean, I like to say that, I sort of look at the emotion in the picture. I mean, don't look at it. I feel the emotion in the picture, and the music comes from there. So I wasn't even really that conscious of the Verdi moments, because, like I was saying, they stand by themselves without any without me interfering with it in any way. And I just wanted to be able to, transition and support and do all the things that the score needed to do, in a way that was pleasing to me and, hopefully pleasing to the audience.
Well, Sweet Dreams of Joy, which is the featured song we're going to play at the very end in its entirety, features the incredible Ana Maria Martinez. How did that collaboration come together, and what did you feel her voice brought to the composition? Were you looking for a specific voice, and how did you know when you found
I knew. Well, I knew I wanted the soprano for sure, because I mean that just saying the words gives me chills. Just saying the word soprano. Oh, yeah, fantastic. So once I'd written the piece and the lyrics, and I had played it for Christine and for our director Yvonne Russo, and they liked it. Thankfully, they really liked it, and I said, well, I'm gonna find a young up and coming soprano to demo it for us, so we really get a sense of what it's going to sound like. And so I had a friend whose wife was a vocal contractor, and she hooked me up with this lady who ran the young artist program down at LA Opera, and she suggested this young soprano leave Redpath, who now is like an international soprano,
Mhm.
But I got her when she was still in the program there, and so she came and then sang the demo, and it was like amazing, and it was like gave me chills, and so then as we're going down this road, I started thinking, well, it'd be great to have a pretty major soprano sing this thing if we can get somebody. And so I started going to. I had a little list of singers that I thought, wow, any of these would be spectacular. So I kept my eye on Ellie Opera, and then one day one of these sopranos came to town, and so I went down to the show, and I went backstage afterwards. A friend of mine is the principal violinist, and she she brought me backstage, and then when the soprano, whose name is Deanna Damrau, came out, I introduced myself and told her about the film and the song, and asked her if she'd be interested. And she said, "Well, could I hear it?" I said, "Yes, you certainly can." So I sent her the piece, and she loved it, and she was all on board. And then her husband's a tenor, and he was in the production as well. He came to town with bronchitis, and so for the first week or two of the run, he was on stage, but they had a different tenor in the pit singing his part, which is kind of wild. But then, like sort of, somewhere in the run, she emailed me. She says, "I don't think I can do it." I was like, "Oh my God, no." And so I went. So she said, "Look, my husband had bronchitis. Now I'm on medication, and as soon as I leave here in a couple of weeks, I've got to go on this huge South American tour." I'm like, "Oh man!"
Oh, no.
So I even went down again to go backstage and talk to her. I said, I come pick you up. We'll go to Capitol Records or somewhere, just be a few hours." And, she said, "I know, but, it has to be perfect and I have to work on it." I was like, "Oh yeah, I get it,"
Yeah.
And she actually ends up in the film because there's a little clip of her singing Traviata, at the Met, that we used. So I was kind of despondent after that, and I sort of went home, and I happened to talk to my engineer, Clark Germain, and I said, "Clark, you can't believe what just happened, but." So I tell him the saga. He says, "Look, I know Ana Maria Martinez." I was like, "You do? How come how come I'm just finding this out now?" So he said, "Look, I'll email her." So he emails her, and she got back to us right away. She said, "I love this. I love it. I love the project. I love the song. How do we move it forward?" Which was amazing, and he had worked with her. Clark had worked with her on Mozart in the Jungle, that series. I think it was season 2 when they were in Italy, and so all the soprano work and was her and Placido Domingo, and for which she won a Grammy. And so she said, "Look, I'm going to be up at San Francisco Opera this month, and maybe we can record there." And I was like, "Yeah, fantastic!" So we all went. Clark, myself, and my nephew Derek, who's a director and a videographer, does a lot of music videos. We all flew up there, and we recorded her at Fantasy Studios in Oakland. And it was amazing. I mean, it was just
So it worked out the way that it should.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got involved with it, and from there on, I just started doing more, more and more. I started getting into the score stuff, and at some point, the strings, the string orchestra on the song, I recorded with these, what's called the Bowtie Orchestra in Moscow, which is really cool, because it's relatively inexpensive in that you can buy half an hour segments with the orchestra. So, I'd sent them the parts. I sent them the track to play to, and recorded that, and then they send it back, and then Clark, mixed everything, and yeah.
What did her voice bring to the composition that you think was unique and all her, but it brought something unique to your song?
Mm. She, besides having this powerful, powerful instrument, so emotional, when you put that on any kind of a piece of music, it's like, wow, it just takes it to a level, 10 times above where you imagined it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so she's got all that going. I mean, just the emotional impact, the what's the word, the distance between the pianissimo and the fortissimo is like it's huge. It's so powerful. Um, and yeah, I mean that's what you
Mm-hmm.
get, and she's fabulous in every way,
Amazing.
fabulous human being. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, Nicholas? Do you compose at the piano first, or are there other processes before you sit down at the piano? I mean, you mentioned at the top there that you felt the emotion, and that was part of what led you over to your piano. You sit down, and it starts coming and flowing through you. But are there other things that you build from texture, color, you know, or do you compose at your piano first?
Usually it's either the piano or my keyboard where I have access to all kinds of sounds on the computer, because often, it won't necessarily be a piano sound that I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So I might pull up something else. I mean, I'll still be playing it from the keyboard, but I'll pull up some other sound that is sort of more of what I feel like the music should be, or is it, what the film is calling for, or whatever, and then work on the composition that way. And then once I get some sort of a structure down, I'll start adding other things, or changing stuff, or bringing in unusual sounds, or whatever kind of strikes my fancy at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually
How
the
do
way
you?
it
I
sort of
mean,
happens.
this project. There's so much legacy behind it. It's um, so rooted in legacy and emotion. How do you know when it's done? When you know that the music, when the music said everything that you needed to say. How do you know in that moment when it's finished?
Yeah, I'm not sure you ever know, Jeremiah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you ever know. I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes you're like, that's it. Yeah, I don't want to touch anything. It is like it's
Yeah.
perfect, and. But I find mostly it's with the mixes that it's an endless journey of fiddling, and it never ends.
So that's part
Um,
of the mystery that you talk about when it comes to you. It's almost the same all the way through to the finish, and you just have to let it go at some point and hope that the muse that appeared to you, that brought you the music that flowed through you, has said what it needed to say. It sounds like it's part of the mystery and the magic.
I think so. I think so. Because I'm always reminded of I think it was that movie Il Postino. The
Good movie.
director, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that film. The director had a bunch of friends over to this little movie theater in his town in Italy, and so they're watching the film. And at some point during the film stops, and they're kind of looking. His friends are like looking around, and the director's disappeared. And they're like, "What's going on?" So they wait a few minutes, nothing happens, and then one of them decides to go look around and see if they can find the director, and they do, and they find him up in the projection room, and he's literally got the film on the floor, and he's recutting a section because he wasn't he wasn't happy with what he was looking at. And that is like, it's such
You
a
related
perfect
to
story of how it is. Totally, you know. It just cracks me up because it's so on the money. It's like, so, you know, it drives you insane, you know, because you like, especially like when when you first come up with all this stuff and you have a certain thing in your head, like you want it to sound a certain way, you want a certain emotional thing from it, and often in the composition and the production, it takes you away from that. It takes you somewhere else, which may be better ultimately, but
Yeah.
I can't see that sometimes. It's like I'm still like riveted on this initial idea that I had, you know. And sometimes you end up going with this different version of what you had in mind, and you know, a year or two later, you're like, yeah, that's good. That's better than what I was thinking originally, you know. So sometimes with time, you like settle down and like, okay, you know, it worked out the right way, you know.
They can
Uh,
the orchestra can find you in the back cutting up the putting the new ending on. Well,
well, I mean, no. The thing is, with the orchestra, you have the luxury. Well, it depends on how much money you have to spend and time, but you have the luxury of changing stuff in the moment. Like as you're working with the orchestra, ooh, you know, I mean, more taking stuff out than putting new stuff in, because putting new stuff in will require, you know, writing music out and stuff like that. But sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can do that. You can say the timpanist, you know, give me a low A on that beat, and you know, bar 360, you know. So you still have some time to, like, you know, mess around.
yeah,
Yeah,
experiment.
yeah.
So Viva
Hmm.
Verdi releases the soundtrack releases in 1 week, basically November 15th. Is there a milestone, or does that mark anything in particular for you? The reason the release at November 15th.
That particular
Is there any
date,
specific? Yeah.
no, yeah, not really. I mean, I'm just sort of following on, you know, the release of the film, and you know, I just sort of managed to sort of get it all together and pick which pieces to put on the soundtrack. And you know, there's sort of bits of work to do, you know, sort of like, you know, mastering the each piece, um, and I just, you know, finally kind of got around to it all. I didn't want to release it before the film got released because that seems sort of pointless, because everybody was like, well, what's this from? Where? How can I see it? Well, you can't, you know. So um, so yeah, so I wanted to wait till we'd done our initial release, which was the first week of October, and and then, you know, yeah. So
Yeah.
now now we're
Perfect time.
now we're at the point.
It's it should be playing at your holiday parties. This album should be played for Thanksgiving dinner, and then walks on the beach and everything else. This really is an inspiring soundtrack. The music is very inspiring, and I think it fits all of your best occasions. So good. That's a good time of the year to release it. I think it's very good. I read in some of
Yeah,
your past
thanks.
interviews that you said music can be both memory and invention. What memories did Viva Verde awaken for you as a composer?
Mm. You know, um, opera music, I hadn't really been on my radar for a very long time. But you know, when I was a kid, I think I was probably about 12, and my brothers were 14. They're twins. My mother got us a job working backstage in this opera house in Cape Town, South Africa, where we were living at the time. You know, it's kind of like stagehands.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a summer job, you know. And so I was like, oh man, I don't want to be doing this. I want to go to the beach, you know. So, but we did it because she made us do it, and and so at some point, within a week or two, the director or I don't know who got wind of the fact that I was a choir boy as well. I was actually like the head chorister at St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town, South Africa at the time. And he said, "You're not working backstage anymore. You're going to be in the production, in the chorus, or wherever we need to put you," kind of thing. And I was like, "What? Okay, all right." I didn't. It was a world I knew nothing about. And so I remember we did 2 operas that summer. We did Tosca and we did Falstaff, and it was an amazing experience. I was like, "Wow, this is a whole world that I know nothing about." And so from that point until Christine showed me this 12-minute clip, I hadn't really done anything of an operatic nature. I may have brought in a singer once or twice to sing on something, but it wasn't about opera. It was just about that vocal quality and the power that I wanted on that particular piece. So when this film came along, it was like, it's sort of like, it reminded me of that summer and the feeling of being on stage, because I've been on stage, but not in that kind of a stage, like more as just a player, and not
Mm-hmm.
being like I don't want to say an actor, but that kind of thing, costumes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, sort of reignited the feeling of back then, and really kind of got me a little hepped up on it,
Yeah.
and
That's a nice memory. I
subsequent to
like
that,
that memory.
it is, and
Summertime,
I,
being a
my mother,
child, and the theater it's got to be so overwhelming, at that time,
yeah, yeah. I
at
mean, my
that age.
mother, yeah, well, she was musical, but she didn't know music at all. My father's side, they did, but she loved music, and she always, like, when I was 7 years old, we were living in France, and she sent me back to England I had to go and audition at Canterbury Choir School, but she sent me there, and I auditioned and got in and whatnot. My brothers went to a different school because for some reason she thought I had some musical ability. I guess I used to sing along with songs in the car. I mean, who doesn't do that?
Do you
For
still
some reason
sing?
she thought, I do on occasion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All
So,
different kinds of stuff.
so your mom heard
Sometimes,
something in you.
yeah, yeah. She heard something and thought, I'm sending this boy to a choir school, which was, it was a mixed blessing because, at 7 years old, it's pretty young to be, separated from your family and, going out into the world of
Yeah.
some sort,
Have you
but it
ever
was,
thanked
but
her
on the, um,
for
I'm not sure
introducing
if I
you?
have, John. Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I have, in a direct kind of way,
Hmm.
thank you for all the ideas that you had and making them happen. No, I haven't done that. And there's still time. She's 98, but she's still around,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. 98. Your music has carried her through some years there. um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure she's so
Yeah.
proud. That's such a good story. What do you want this album to leave behind, Viva Verdi? What's its is there an emotional and or artistic legacy that you would like it to, something you'd like it to say about you and your legacy? We talked about legacy in the beginning, and whether
Yeah.
you know.
I think my hope and dream, and I don't know if it would happen or not, is that, some young sopranos would, because one of the two of the other pieces on the album are instrumental versions of vocal versions,
Mhm.
um, which at some point I'm not sure, whether they will come out, whether I'll put them out on like an EP or something like that, or even maybe even a whole album of that kind of stuff, or whether they may get in, show up in an opera that I'm thinking, I'd like to write, basically. So I'm looking for a situation where someone might commission it in some way, so that I know that it would have, some sort of a life outside of me writing it in my studio.
Yeah.
So I think, my hope is that, these pieces will appeal to somebody, and they'll have some life beyond this this soundtrack. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to see it live, performed live.
mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
there may be an
let's put that out
opportunity.
there.
Yeah, no, I know we're going to
Well, listen, I mean,
do it. Well, we're going to do a screening and reception and performance, hopefully the first week of December, somewhere in town. And yeah, it's all up in the air, and nothing is set in stone at all. Otherwise, I would tell you all about it and give you dates. But
well, you can come back anytime you find out anything new. Let me know for sure. I'd love to
oh,
let
thanks.
everybody
Yeah,
know.
thanks.
Have you ever imagined that you're sitting down, you get a chance to sit down with Giuseppe Verdi, and you could play these pieces for him? Have you ever imagined
Mm.
what he might say, and what do you hope he'd say?
Wow, never occurred to me, Jeremiah. I bet it's a really interesting thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think he had a lot of. I think he had, you know, he had friendships with other composers. In fact, the one composer asked him, what do you think is your greatest work? And his response was, my greatest work is building Casa Verdi, which is kind of funny. And you can see why he would think that after what we've talked about. But as was like sitting down together and I mean, I just think I guess I would just be listening to whatever he had to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wouldn't that be great?
And yeah, wouldn't it? That would be something. That would be something. And maybe he would be, he would be thrilled that, well, I guess the question is, would it be a thing where I was going back in time, or whether if we were peers at the same time, kind of thing? I guess that would make a difference. But if I was coming back from the future, back to his time, or vice versa, then it would probably be a pretty interesting conversation, about all kinds of stuff.
Well, I like to think
related
that. I
to.
like to imagine that. What you guys would talk
Yeah.
about, how you'd probably be pretty fascinated with the record player, or how the
Right.
audio came out
Yeah.
too. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
was the film is so beautiful. I mean, it's really something that I'd love to encourage. Everybody should see this film, Viva Verdi. Where can people see this? Is it available yet, streaming or in theaters? I know you've had a great run on the film festival circuit. Nicholas, is there a way that do we know when this can be viewed by everyone?
It's not going to be up on a big streaming service for the foreseeable future. Both Yvonne and Christine have really great ideas about how to get it out there. I mean, to give you an example, AARP has picked it as their Christmas screening movie. So,
perfect.
December 17th, it's going out to their 40 million members as their Christmas offering, which is amazing.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah,
to reach that many people, and then there's some more festivals. There's a Lincoln Center Festival where it's playing on December 2nd in New York City. There's a Bedford Playhouse in upstate New York, also in December. So there are still festival things going on and specialized screening things like the AARP thing. So I think down the road, I mean, I think At some point, it'll be on one of them, or all of them.
Right.
I don't know. But
Well,
I,
you know what I'll do is I'll look up those dates that you just mentioned. I'll put it in the podcast copy so that people, if they're in that area or if they're able to find it, if they're a member of AARP, they can find it and look out for it. I'll put all that in our copy. Well, the story again is at Casa Verde, and it's musicians that have had much success throughout their lives, and then they're now living there. This gives them a place to live in their later years in life, but they also uh, instruct or mentor young musicians, up and coming musicians that can learn something from their wisdom. And so it's such a beautifully shot film. Obviously, the music is incredible and uplifting and just beautiful, but it's really a heart. You really feel for these residents, these musicians in this film. And I was wondering if there was one musician. I'm sure you have a lot of great stories, but was there someone that you met that told you a great story, or that you have a great story about, that inspired you at all?
there have been a few of them, honestly. When I was still living in South Africa before I came to the U.S., and, a long time ago, to go to school in Boston, there was a mentor of mine, a musician by the name of Merton Barrow, and he was just this phenomenal musician and he still is a phenomenal human being, and so he was so encouraging and so, just wanted to help, wanted to be there. He after I left, he started a jazz school in Cape Town, which went, which I think it's still there, but he ran it for like 25 years, and he was so the perfect person to be doing it, because he was just so encouraging and so positive, and I mean, it was amazing to be with him, because you walked out of there feeling like anything was possible,
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that comes to mind is the flute teacher I had at that time. So I'm like, what, 15, 16, 17. And I got this new flute teacher because the Cape Town Symphony Orchestra hired a new principal flautist, a young German guy, Konrad Huntela. And so, I met up with him, and he said, well, play me something, and so I played him a classical piece, but then he said, well, play me some of the jazz rock stuff that you're doing, so I played him a little bit of that. He said, wow. He said, I'll tell you what, if you work hard and you practice and your jazz stuff, that's all really great, that's really cool, but I want you to work on your classical technique and blah blah blah. He said, if you do that, I will bring you in to sub in the orchestra for the second flautist, who is sick a lot. He's an older gentleman, and he's sick a lot. So he did that, and so I sat in with the orchestra a half dozen times, playing like Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe, Respighi, Fountains of Rome. I mean, amazing pieces, and that experience taught me everything I know pretty much about orchestration. Sitting in the middle of that orchestra and listening to everything going on around me, it was like, I can tell you one thing, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It wasn't like some rock concert I went to. This was the loudest thing, being in the middle of an orchestra, the brass and the percussion, and it was like amazing, fantastic. Well, those two people were majorly influential on me.
Okay, Viva Verdi. The soundtrack album is going to be released on November 15th on all music services. You can find it on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music. It features the song Sweet Dreams of Joy featuring Ana Maria Martinez. You can find out more about Nicholas Pike at nicholaspike.net. And we began this hour laying our own foundation in a house built by Giuseppe Verdi. Viva Verdi. And we can conclude with another composer's story, Nicholas Pike, who continues that legacy in his own way, writing music that reminds us that every note, every measure of compassion is part of something larger and timeless. Verdi built Casa Verdi so that musicians could always have a place to belong. Nicholas Pike's Viva Verdi gives that vision a new sound, proof that the melody of kindness in creation never really stops. I want to give a big thanks to Nicholas for sharing his story with us today and his art. And I want to remind you, in Verdi's day, the words Viva Verdi meant more than praise for a composer. They were code for freedom itself. Music is freedom. Cherish it. And now, here's Nicholas Pike's modern echo of that spirit, Sweet Dreams of Joy, featuring Ana Maria Martinez. I'll see you next week. Listen more and evolve. Nicholas, any final words?
Sorry,
Nicholas,
Jeremy, you dropped out.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was just going to say, do you have any final words? Anybody you want to thank or say hello to, or any words for your listeners?
I want to thank our friend Carol Connors for being the executive producer on the show.
Thank you.
But I want to thank you for having me on. It's like so much fun. It's so great to talk about all this stuff, and it's so great that you were there doing what you're doing, So thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. Would you like, I set up the song, but then we started talking again. Would you like to set it up for us? I'd be honored if you would.
Oh, okay. How do I do that?
I guess you can just say enjoy my music.
Yeah, well, here it is. It's a piano, the string orchestra, and the fabulous Ana Maria Martinez. And I hope you all enjoy it.
Nicholas, I hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Jeremy.